John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, my name is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. I have almost 30 years of experience in the credit industry. I've spent time at FICO, which is the company obviously behind the FICO credit scoring system, and also Equifax, which is one of the three generally recognized credit reporting agencies in the United States. And so today it's going to be heavyweight versus heavyweight, so the battle of plastic. We are going to talk about what is better, debit cards or credit cards. And rather than just kind of say, oh, I think blah, blah, blah card is better, I'm going to give you some what I consider to be important comparison metrics, and then we're going to discuss which are better for debit cards and which are better for credit cards, and then I'm going to let you decide what you think is the better form of plastic and the better method of payment. So obviously a debit card is essentially a plastic check. So for those of you who are my age, you remember writing checks out of a checkbook and ripping off the paper check and handing it to somebody. A debit card is a plastic version of that, okay? A credit card is obviously an extension of credit. You're tapping into a line of credit that has been extended to you by a credit card issuer, a bank, a credit union, and you can use it, pay it down, use it again, pay it down, use it again. The difference here is this debit card is your money that's coming out of your checking account. A credit card is a bank's money. It's coming out of the bank's, essentially, it's coming out of their war chest, and you're just responsible for making the payment. So actually, we should talk about that as being one of the comparison metrics. Debit card, your money. Credit card, bank's money. Okay? I think that's a pretty big deal. Why is it a big deal? Because of number one on the list, fraud protections. Would you rather have a fraudster steal your money or the bank's money? I think everybody would suggest that I'd rather have the bank have to deal with the fraud than me have to deal with the fraud. But here's the deal when it comes to fraud protections. Credit cards have unbelievable credit card protections. First off, the Fair Credit Billing Act, or the FCBA, the Fair Credit Billing Act. Don't confuse that with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They're not the same thing. The Fair Credit Billing Act caps your liability for credit card fraud at $50. $50. And the four credit card networks, Visa, Amex, MasterCard, and Discover, all have zero fraud liability policies, which means $0 of liability. Debit cards also have some protections under the FCBA, but they're capped at $500 and they're dependent on how quickly you contact your financial institution. The problem is that if someone steals money out of your checking account, there's some sort of a debit card fraud, that's your money that's now gone, and you're hoping that the bank sides with you and then puts that amount of money back into your account. If someone steals your credit card, you still need to report it. You still need to let them know that you've been defrauded so they can close the account and open up a new account for you. But that's the bank's money that's been stolen, not your money. So I think from the fraud protections perspective, I think a fair comparison would have to say the credit card wins the fraud protections, okay? Number two, credit building. This one isn't even a fair, this part of the fight is unfair. Credit card wins this hands down. Debit cards have no credit building facilities. There is no debit card on your credit report. Don't argue with me, it's not there. If they're in fact the standards in the credit reporting industry, the standards manual clearly indicates do not report debit cards to the credit reporting agencies because they are not an extension of credit. Number three, capacity. What is capacity? Capacity is also commonly referred to as buying power, okay? The buying power of your debit card is equal to the amount of money you have in your checking account. So if you have $1,000 in your checking account, that's your buying power with your debit card. You should not leave a lot of money in your checking account. Why? Because you're earning almost zero interest on that. If you have money, you should leave that money somewhere else that is going to yield a higher return as far as an interest rate goes. If you leave a ton of money in your checking account, it is just sitting there. It's not earning, it's not working for you. Capacity on a credit card, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 30, 40, 50. You can have a massive amount of buying power on a credit card. So I think that one, a fair comparison would be the credit card. Wins that one hands down. Number 4, usability. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Have you ever tried to use a debit card to go on vacation? Have you ever tried to use a debit card to rent a car or pay for a hotel room? Have you ever tried to use a debit card as a business traveler? It is a nightmare. The reason it's a nightmare is because A, sometimes it's expensive to travel and you don't have a ton of money sitting in your checking account, or you shouldn't. Number 2, hotels, rent-a-car companies put a hold against some amount in your checking account if you were to use a debit card when you check in or rent the car. That hold makes that amount of money unavailable for use to clear other transactions. You can actually bounce checks, metaphorically speaking, if you use your debit card to go on a expensive vacation or a business trip. Credit card, you don't have that problem. Why don't you have that problem? Because you probably have multiple credit cards. This means you have buying power across multiple cards. And B, so what if the hotel puts a hold against $1,000? If you've got a $20,000 or $30,000 credit line on a credit card, that's irrelevant to you, okay? So I would suggest a fair comparison here has the credit card, winning that one. Number 5, kind of budgetary and debt control. I think this is the one where the debit card absolutely wins. And the reason the debit card absolutely wins has a lot to do with number 4, usability. You cannot get into more debt by using a debit card because it is not debt. It's your money. You already have it. It's in your checking account. You're just spending your money. Obviously, you can get into a tremendous amount of debt by using a credit card because it's the bank's money. You may have access to a large amount of it. So I think as far as budgetary controls go, then clearly the debit card is the winner. Having said that, people who have self-control over credit cards, you never hear them complain about interest rates or credit card debt because they don't get into credit card debt. They use the card for what they can afford to pay off at the end of every single month, and it's a non-issue for them. So I think by using all of these comparison metrics, I think the credit card wins, and I think it's pretty handily. I don't think it's a close call. So if you're a young person and you're entering the world of credit, using a debit card is not adulting in the form of using credit. Using a credit card is actually using credit. You should have a lot of credit cards. It doesn't mean have a lot of credit card debt, but you should have a lot of credit cards because you have ironclad fraud protections. They help you to build credit. You could have a tremendous amount of capacity, which makes the usability very easy because you have a ton of buying power, but you just need to be careful not to get into a ton of debt because credit card debt can be expensive. So I appreciate you watching. If you have any comments, I have a feeling that I will. This is a kind of a lightning rod topic. Drop them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to get to them. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.